how you end a story doesn't really matter because you have to end it. You just
Okay.
have to get your story done. You have a drawer full of stories without endings because you're worried about them being good, about them being successful, about not being derivative, but also working commercially. And of course, you're not finishing it because we can't write when we're stressed about whether what we write is good. That just locks you up.
All right, hey writers, we have another great coaching video, this time about how to finish. How do you actually finish your book? How do you write a great ending? These are questions every writer faces, and we have some great ways of thinking about it, both from a storytelling perspective and just a practical. How do you have the discipline to actually finish your book? I know you're going to enjoy that. We are doing a lot of new coachings. If you want to get coaching from a best-selling author, check out the link in the description. You'll find it there. Also, make sure to like this video, hit subscribe. It's a huge help. It helps us make more videos like this. So if you want more great coaching content, more great writing content, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks and happy writing.
Let's talk about your book. What are you hoping to get out of this time?
I write fantasy mostly because that's what I like to read. And what I deal with a lot is I have a great idea. It's running through my head a lot and I start writing it. But then what happens is I write and I'm writing really well. And then like about midway, I kind of run out of steam and I have so much trouble trying to end it. So I have stories that are halfway done, 3/4 of the way done. And I'm just kind of, I might have an ending in mind, but it sounds really lame. It just seems very bland. And I want a good ending, obviously. I feel like I start off pretty strong and then I just kind of lose the flow of it. I just lose it. And then I put them down and I don't pick them up again for a long time. So sometimes I go back and I'll start reading from the beginning again and I might see changes I might make, but I still don't really have a good ending in mind. So I've been trying to read up on writing good endings. I looked at the Write Practice. I've been looking at books I have about it, but if you have any advice, I think the endings is where I really have a lot of trouble.
Basically, that's two problems, right? How to push through and actually finish a book or a story,
right,
and how to come up with a really great ending, right?
Yeah, basically.
That's two problems.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and they might be contributing to each other. So this book that you sent me, is this the one that you were talking about?
Yeah, it happens to me with all kinds of stories, but this one is one I feel like I could really push through if I came up with something good. So that's why I sent you that one. So yeah, it's one. If I could finish that this year, that would be great.
All right. So let's look at this book plan, and then I'll talk a little bit about how to approach your ending. And maybe at some point you can give me just like some quick, like the gist of the structure of the story, and we can talk about ending. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So looking at your premise, a lonely woman hopes to find friendship and support when she is initiated into a supernatural sisterhood, but there are rivalries and discontent within the group, while at the same time, a dark hunter stalks them seeking revenge. Okay. Yeah, there's some good things that I really like here. Why is she lonely?
She's kind of always been a sort of person who feels outcast. She's not pretty, so people, she has low self-esteem. She has an abusive mother who is obviously not supportive. So she doesn't feel supported basically by people around her. And she's bullied. She feels, because of the low self-esteem, she doesn't put herself out there. So she's basically just very inside herself and, socially awkward and introverted.
Interesting. Tell me more about the dark hunter.
Okay. What happens is that she becomes, why I try to base it on local folklore in my own country. I took this idea of a kind of a supernatural woman in folklore who takes revenge on men. So they have, in my book, they become, in the novella or whatever it's going to be, they become like a group that kind of supports each other in the supernatural world. But one of them, the leader of the whole group, has a past where she overstepped her bounds. So this creature is coming to take revenge on her for all the things that she has done in the past. She's like exacted revenge on people all around her, and someone put a curse on her. So this supernatural creature is coming to take revenge on her for all the wrongs that she has done in the past. If that makes sense.
I'm thinking, what's her name?
Her name is Jackie. Well, Jackie becomes part of this group, and she feels, empowered. She feels like she has a friends now and that kind of thing. And becoming part of the supernatural group means she has supernatural powers as well. So she feels like she belongs somewhere. And then she realizes, they're not as close as they're supposed to be a sisterhood, but they're not actually as close as they should be. She realizes that the supernatural force stalking them is just going to threaten their whole structure. He could destroy all of them. So what she found is kind of family. And now it's been because of the things that the leader of all of them have done is just threatening their whole existence. So she could die because of what's going to happen, and she could also just lose this whole family that she found that made her life so different. So she found this what she thought was like just what she needed, and now she's going to lose it probably because of this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm tracking. How does she get her powers? Does the group give her the powers, or
yeah? You could say they're not witches in a sense, but it's kind of like this. If you want a universal term, they're like witches. So becoming part of the group, that's part of it. You become part of a family.
Why would they accept her though? Why would they give her these powers?
First, they all begin in the same way. They all start off as women who are abused or neglected in their lives, and just like the folklore here, it's usually because of because of the thing that ties them all together is the men in their lives who have abused them in the past. And when they fight back, that kind of is what brings them together. That they all were living in these situations, and they all fought back at one point. And so the group kind of pulls together all these women who have the same background, the same kind of, I wouldn't say heritage, but it brought them together because they all have this background and they bring them together. So as part of this supernatural life sisterhood, they have powers. That's how, because they're like from all over the world, they're from different time periods. They come together in a supernatural space to meet. And part of that is that they have powers as well. Because, anyway, it would work for something like that.
Okay, so there's kind of two stories going on. And one, this is where the right structure would be helpful. So let's look at this for a second, because there's kind of two arcs and two plot lines. There's her relationship with the group, and just kind of general acceptance within the group. So she starts out alone. So we're down here. Then she creates this relationship with the group, finds some acceptance, but then she realizes it's disintegrating because of like the rivalries. And then the thing attacks, and it looks like maybe it's going to disintegrate further, but it brings them together. And then she helps them defeat the thing, I'm assuming. So
wow.
A typical love story arc. And it is kind of a love story arc because it's about community, the love within a group, not so much within a couple. Where does she meet the group?
They come to her. So she actually attacks a guy who tries to assault her. So they come to her, and because she's not aware of this, obviously it's those situations where you feel the world is just normal, and then you learn about these things. At what point?
Yeah.
Just like very early in the story, it's like she's down there at the bottom, and then in the first excerpt, about after the second scene or something, she kind of starts to become aware of them. So it's like at the very early on in the story.
Gotcha. So really it's like here.
Yeah, I would say that you only kind of get an idea of what her life is like very briefly, and then she moves up, and as she moves up you realize what her life was like, and it was it's so much better now, and it goes up like that. So that makes sense.
Okay, so like that, and then like this, and then like this.
It goes up. Yeah.
So that roughly. Now where does the dark beast come in?
Let's see, I'm trying to think. I'm looking at the horizon for, I guess she's already kind of getting an idea that things aren't that great as the story starts to drop, and then maybe, but she's okay with it. So I guess kind of halfway down in that drop, she realizes how bad things really are. So I think the line you have there could go up a little higher, like maybe a little higher, but that's about it.
Like here.
Yeah.
So like about a third of the way through the story.
I think so. All
right, so she's just going about her daily life.
And things are much better. Everything improves because of what she went about that.
Yeah. So, and then the dark guy comes and then she defeats it. Oops.
Oh, cool.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So this is why this is complicated. You need to choose what the main plot is. Is it her acceptance into this group? Is it a love story about belonging and community? Or is it an adventure story?
both can't work together simultaneously.
They can, but which
Mhm.
comes first and
Mhm.
which is more important? And which do you want to emphasize in the premise too, right?
True.
Because right now it feels like there's a lot going on. You're trying to fit both of these into the premise, and you're really emphasizing this one. And
Mhm.
that is that you will get farther in
Mhm.
trying to publish this eventually if you emphasize.
Mhm.
And also, I think that's going to inform the ending too. So, like, this is both a publishing exercise and a writing exercise because this helps.
That's what I want.
So the thing is that right now, this
Mhm.
adventure plot, the
Yeah.
Jackie versus the hunter, doesn't start
Mhm.
until a third of the way through the story. And my bet is that this is where you're going to get most of like your juice,
Mhm.
most of your story conflict, most of your drama.
Mhm.
So what I'm wondering, and I'm not sure that this is the right path. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to write a story, but what I'm
Mhm.
wondering
Mhm.
is, could you do this?
Mhm.
Start this earlier. You know, there's a lot of great stories that develop more slowly, but there's something to be said for just getting into the big conflict earlier. You know, this would be a more commercial way to start the story, where what you had is more literary, more like low burn build,
Mhm.
you know, kind of
Okay.
thing.
If it will help me push through to an ending, I mean, because what I'm doing now is definitely not working. Because I just left this for a while and it's just kind of sat there and I keep looking at it and not being sure what to do. So I think if that will help me kind of move forward, that would be great. I don't mind trying that at all.
That's a slightly different problem. I mean,
Right.
thinking about the structure will definitely help you
Mhm.
come up with good ideas.
Okay.
But there's a difference between finishing a story and
Oh,
coming
yeah.
up with ideas, because all the ideas in the world, all the great ideas in the world, you know, will not always help you finish, right?
Yeah. Because I get the ideas. I get the ideas to start and everything. And then I'm just kind of lost. The ideas stop. I don't know. It seemed like it to me anyway.
But one thing that this could help you is just to see like how these two plots work together. By identifying which one is the main plot and which one is the subplot can help you figure out your ending. Because what a lot of great stories do, and again, like this is just how some people solve problems, and there's other ways to do it. So I'm not trying to put you in a box or anything. I just want you to be thinking about these things. So all right, so let's say that the purple is the main plot. This is the climax of the main plot. So it's a big showdown, right?
That's what I'm trying to aim for. Yeah.
Between Jackie and the hunter and the rest of her team. There's probably going to be also that we haven't talked about yet. It's kind of there, and I'm seeing, maybe you're seeing it too, but like some kind of internal plot of maturity, and maybe it's like this, like she's getting, she starts out, actually we could think about it like this. So she starts out in her normal life, she knows everything, then she gets introduced to these sisters and there's this whole magical world, and she starts here even by defending herself and standing up to her abusers. She starts in a good place, but then there's all this infighting between the people, and she is kind of maybe reverting back to some bad behavior of having to be alone and feeling alone and kind of turning it on herself and like becoming the bullied person again, and not, so basically like she's going to a more immature place, a less growth place. And then she decides to stand up for herself and for the group, and realizes she can't do it on her own anymore.
I didn't think of it like that, but that is exactly how it's playing out. So it makes
Okay,
sense.
perfect. So that's the internal plot, what we call the internal plot. All right, so internal plot, kind of like her personal growth journey. And there's an internal climax of her discovering like resolving to work with the sisterhood, realize she's not in it on her own, that she needs to work with this group, and that she's going to defend them no matter what. You know, like they're all in it together, and she's going to stand up to the bully. So there you go. And this time she's going to win. Like when she first stands up to the abuser, does she win or does she lose?
She actually kills him by accident. So at first it's like she thinks it's like this terrible low point, and then but that's actually what brings her, introduces her to the group. Yeah.
So I like that, because what needs to happen here is that she needs to question ever standing up to anyone again. True. And that actually, she does stand up to someone, and it goes in her mind really badly. And she resolves to never do it again. Okay. And then that can lead to the climax of, okay, that was, maybe I shouldn't like accidentally kill people, but also I need to stand up for myself in a way that feels good for me. And maybe I just kill people on purpose or something. You know what I'm saying? So there needs to be some kind of growth, all that's to say. And this climax happens right before the big showdown. Okay.
Right.
She says, yes, I am going to work with the sisterhood. We're going to stand up to the bully. We're all in it together, no matter what. And then they have the showdown. And then you have the subplot, which is her relationship with the sisterhood. Climax. And a love story subplot always ends with the couple like kissing at the end. They have the big fight with the villain, and then they close off the story with the couple kissing at the end. You don't have a traditional love story, but the same way, like they have a bonding moment at the end. And so that's your ending. Okay. Three climaxes, 3 plots, you bring it all together, and that will feel really good, you know?
I think so. Well, I want, that's what I want a satisfying ending, and I want it to be exciting and all that. But so I see you're on the same wavelength as me, as that what I'm trying to aim for. So I like that. I don't want a downer ending. It's okay.
So
writing that down. Cool.
Now there's an alternative that you could take. A lot of plots will have, if you have a positive ending, you have a negative internal ending. So let's say your alternative internal plot is green, and she starts out in a low place because she just accidentally killed someone. And then through the sisterhood, she gets into a high place of like bonding and acceptance and, standing up to people, but not in a bad way, just like not a violent way. So I don't know, like we're all bonding. Yay. She's growing. And then when her group is now threatened, she goes to a dark place. This is almost like a Carrie kind of thing. And she goes down, but she's actually, by the end, she's a harder, darker, not quite evil, but could be on her way to some evil, So that's an alternative way to think about this. And here, if you wanted to do that, this internal climax would be, she resolves to do anything it takes to defend herself and her group. And even if those actions are evil.
Right.
So you're just emphasizing the dark side. And then by the end, she's a little evil. Think about The Godfather or something. Like he starts out nice and a good guy, and at the end he's like looking out the window, thinking about all the bad things.
Right. They're kind of twisted. You're kind of twisted by the experience that you went through. So
what's good about this is that it creates some tension, and in general, having an internal arc that ends negatively, some of the most lingering stories have this tension between the internal arc. So if they lose the climax, if they lose the battle, they go down, but they're heroic, and we admire them. So that would be a tragic ending with a positive internal plot. If you're going to go positive ending, sometimes you can add tension and some interestingness by showing kind of the dark side of that internal.
Right. Yeah, it's not the kind of story I think should end just everything is perfect at the end. So I see where you're coming with that. Even because then they could even still be a little, like you said, a bit evil. It shouldn't have to be totally turned, but I can see where you're coming from that as well.
Yeah. So I kind of like that. And you get to play with this. I'm not suggesting that you need to do anything like that.
Right.
But this is how I break down stories. And I think it can help you separate things out for what you need to do for your ending. Does that make sense?
It does, because at least it's giving me ideas already. So that was when I was in your session where you were showing that, these highs and lows, but I didn't realize how that visual could help kind of like visualize what could happen. So I'm seeing it playing out here and it's working. It's giving me at least ideas of how it could go. So I agree.
What you really need to focus on when you're thinking about these endings, these climaxes, is what is the dilemma? So the dilemma always happens right before the climax, and really it informs the climax, creates the climax. It's like the fuel for storytelling in general. And one thing to note about the big showdown, the dilemma is often the same as the internal dilemma. So the question is, do I work with a team or do I try to go alone? Or do I do the evil thing that will protect my family? Or do I do what is, I know, good, but risk everyone dying, being killed by the hunter?
Or do nothing. Or you do nothing and then could also come out.
Sure. So the dilemma is often the internal climax and the internal dilemma for the external plot. And that's just one reason why a lot of times you'll see the internal climax happen right before the external climax, the main plot climax, because it is the dilemma. And also that informs the subplot too, because whether they're close at the end or whether there's some tension still, or whether potentially, like, if she's evil, then this climax looks a lot different, right? Because maybe the leader of the group sticks with her, but this one character who has a really strong conscience leaves forever, And so that moment is kind of shattered. So this affects this. And all that's to say is, like, nailing your dilemma will inform your ending and will absolutely drive the climax, all of these climaxes. And you got to figure out what dilemma you want. And it's important. This is where you get to say something about your story and about what your worldview is and about what you think about life. Through the dilemma, you get to choose who wins and who loses. Is it working together? Is it about working together? Is that the question? Is it about doing the right thing versus and maybe losing, or doing it maybe evil thing and winning at all costs? Like those questions are really, both essential kind of from a writing perspective of sharing what you believe about the world, and also essential to driving these climaxes. So that's what I would encourage you as you're thinking and kind of struggling with what your ending is. Like, really push into the dilemma, really try to figure out, what am I trying to say here? What is it that's important to me in this story and in life, And how do I raise that question and then show what happens?
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Because like I said, as you're talking, I'm getting ideas, which is great. And I wasn't sure, like when I was working on the plan before, I wasn't exactly sure what the dilemma was. But I do, like when I write, I do feel like I need to say something. It's not like just a story that something exciting happened. I really am interested in the internal stuff and the kind of making up points in the story as well. So I see what you're talking about. And I'm gonna have to like think about it a lot, but it is helpful. It is, because it's like, if I know how I want to end up, internally, I think that will inform how it will be externally, like you said. I didn't even think about, this ending at like what you suggested about maybe doing the wrong thing and it will come out okay, but then inside you're still not right. Just giving me ideas. So yeah, it definitely helps. Yeah.
What if there's a power that sucks the life out of someone and they are forbidden to use it, but she unlocks it and uses it to defeat the bad guy, and then she wins, but then is kicked out of the community, right? Like stuff like that. It's a question. It's all started from that dilemma, and you get to choose what the dilemma is, but then what the dilemma, that what you choose will inform how that ending plays out. And you could say, like, maybe she does the evil thing and the community's on with it, like they're on board, and then that says something about the world too. You get to choose how it ends too. It's also how you think about theme too. This is how writers insert what they believe about the world, through these questions, through these moments.
What you talked about before about standing up to bullies, that's what the story is about, I guess, in a sense, and I just didn't think of it like that. Because also, I think looking at it from that perspective will help me too, that it's a story about fighting back against people who are trying to bring you down. So it was happening, but I wasn't thinking about it like that. So I'm gonna think about that as well as I'm coming up with the dilemma.
Right.
So how do you do?
How do you deal with bullies? Do you resort to their tactics and win, but maybe give up your soul? Or do you do the right thing, risk losing, but at least you're on the right side of right? And I think that's a powerful question and something all people are faced with all the time. And then you get to choose too, whether her doing the right thing results in success or failure. And maybe it's a little bit of both, like maybe she ends up winning because you do believe that like standing up to bullies in the right way is the right thing, but also someone dies, her favorite person, so there's cost to that.
I think I kind of value stories the way there's always going to be something you lose, because then I don't quite buy the happy ending where everything comes out perfect. So she has to lose something, I think, whether it's big or small. So I think that also is something I want to think about as well, because I think it'll work better with what I'm trying to do.
So that's the first point that I want to make, is this is how to think through creating an ending that's meaningful to you, that doesn't feel cookie cutter, that also works from a storytelling that's exciting, commercial. There's a second side of this, which is just from a writing perspective, how you end a story doesn't really matter because you have to end it, right? You just have to get your story done. You're working on a first draft. You have a drawer full of stories without endings because you're worried about them being good, about them being successful, about them, not being derivative, but also working commercially, being interesting.
Exactly.
You have a lot of concern, a lot of worries about the ending. And of course you're not finishing it, because we can't write when we're stressed about what we write, whether what we write is good. That just locks you up. Now, when writing first drafts goes well, and the reason that you're doing really well for your first half of your story or first 2/3 of your story is because you're not stressed about whether it's good or not. You're enjoying the process of discovery. You're enjoying the process of creating characters and creating their worlds and their situation, and you're not stressed about whether it's good or not,
See that.
And when we get stressed about whether it's good or not, we get locked up. It stops you from being creative. So you need to focus on just discovering, right? I've given you some ideas, and you have a bunch of ideas, and you just have to choose one, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. You just have to go in and discover that this is one way that this can end, and it doesn't have to be the final way, because honestly, like all of this stuff that we went through, it's easier to do in a second draft than it is a first draft.
I get you. So I should, come up with my ending, and then I could always fix it if it's not working. You're saying basically.
In your first draft, I always tell people, don't worry about whether it's good or not. It's not your job to write a good story in your first draft. It's your job to get words on the freaking page, right? It's your job to finish, That's it. Like, don't stress about all those other things. Just finish,
Yeah, that's true.
So that's my encouragement for you. Just choose one option. Doesn't need to be the final thing. And just do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think so. Yeah. I appreciate that.
We still have time if you want to go into your chapter.
Okay, sure.
I'll share my screen too. I might have some questions as I go through. There are a lot of little things that I would tell you to do, just line editing things. But honestly, like until you finish your first draft, it's pointless.
Because it's probably going to change a lot.
Now, again, these things don't matter until you finish your draft. But I'm just telling you because like you're a good writer and there's some small things that you can do to make it a little bit better as you're polishing. You would probably do some of this stuff anyway. This is like final draft kind of feedback,
I really appreciate that. Thank you. You're the first person who's reading this, by the way. So
good. Hopefully I'm the last for a while because all the emphasis on finishing. Polishing is a waste of time. It's a waste of time until you finish the second draft, really.
I do that too. Sometimes I go back and start reading again and I kind of start fixing stuff, but I'm not done. So no, don't. Yeah.
It's vanity. It's vanity to do that because you want it to feel good. You want it to be good. And it doesn't matter at that point because it's not done. So you don't get to fix stuff until you finish telling your story. You have to unearth your story. You have to figure it out. And then you can start doing the work of polishing when it matters, when it's about to be shared. And I get it. Like I do the same thing. But also I've had a lot of people who have been able to yell at me and tell me stop doing that.
I guess I need that a bit.
It's not about good or bad right now. It's just about words on the page. You could be the worst writer in the world from a prose standpoint and tell a great story and become a successful author. And I've seen it happen so many times. Writers who get successful because they finish telling their stories and they're good stories. And then they have other people fix it.
That's so true. Yeah. I know what you mean. Totally.
Yeah. So you need to channel your bad writer for a while. Okay.
I will. I really have to do that because I can't. I'm just stuck. So I don't want to be stuck anymore. So I think I understand what you mean.
Good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, because you're a good enough writer that your writing deserves it. It deserves to be read. But
helps me so much.
Until you finish your stuff, it's pointless.
Right. It's just not going anywhere. I get you. That's why people do NaNoWriMo to get everything out. And at least they finish something at the end of the month. And I haven't been able to do that up to now. So I get you.
You owe it to your writing to finish.
Okay.
How good of a writer you are to finish. All right. So what are your takeaways?
I need to work on the dilemma. I'm going to go through is it the writing plan or the other document again? Because that was actually helping me too while I was working on it.
Great.
So I will do it again. I'm going to some of the things I read about also have talked about writing around the story a bit, like kind of writing notes about what happened before and what happened after that. So I'm going to do that too. Gonna finish, but definitely I think like what you're talking about with the dilemma and thinking of her motivation and how it will play out, like how they can kind of go in different directions. Like it could end up, she could have the internal dilemma could go downwards, then the external climax could actually go up. I think that gives me a lot of good ideas. And then when I actually said, the whole thing about losing something no matter what, I wasn't thinking of it before, but I think that has to be in there, that she loses something no matter how the story ends. So that helps a lot, and I was taking like little notes while you're talking. So I'm going to read through them again.
Would love to see, where you're at once you finish. I want to hear when you finish, seriously.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right. And just the fact that you were the first person to read my story and you got into it makes me feel so happy.
Good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You're on the right track.
Thank you so much.